Yo, SpaghettiOs, what is crack-a-lackin'? And welcome to episode 28 of the Back of the End Zone podcast. I'm Josh Rysick, here with Brian Koleski, and man, we are ready to dive right into some stuff. Every week, obviously we are when we get into our episodes, but this week, there's some interesting stuff that happened this past week. There's some interesting things in just the college football world.
Interesting decisions being made in a college football game. Looking at you, Miami, and Mario Cristobal. We'll get into that.
Yeah,
dude, what a month for sports. Not only do you have college football and NFL going on, the MLB playoffs are starting.
Yeah,
Astros are going to repeat after they take care of the Twins this week.
The Astros are a bunch of cheaters, which means you are too, Brian. So
Then you have the NHL season starting.
Yeah.
You have,
I'm really hyped about the NHL season starting.
Yeah,
Connor Bedard. I'm trying to get Bryant on that
Go Kraken.
bandwagon of being a Blackhawks fan, but. All right, but seriously though, in all seriousness, some of the things that we're going to dive into today. Miami, big question marks there. Obviously, they have a big game this week too.
We're going to recap Red River Shootout. What a game that was.
Yeah,
dude.
and then the thing too is that's the last time that the Red River Shootout will be in the Big 12, and there's also
the SEC, baby.
There's also a couple of really big questions revolving the Big 12 and some of their newer teams too, and we'll dive right into that, along with some recap from maybe that Bama A&M game in College Station, and also just looking at who some of the more complete teams are in college football this year. There's lots of questions about maybe Georgia not being up there, maybe shouldn't be number one, but they're number one until they can be beaten. But then there's some questions between those other teams that are in the top 10 right now and where they can pan out by the time the end of the season comes around.
Yeah. And towards the end of the season, we all look for that doomsday scenario for the college football playoff. In the ACC, there is one brewing right now between three teams that could potentially go undefeated, and neither of them play each other until the conference championship game. How that would shake out, we don't know, but we're going to discuss it and see what we can figure out. Yeah,
no, most definitely. And then we're going to get right into, obviously, our college football pick'em segment for this week, our Week 7 pick'em segment. And unfortunately, this week, some plans fell through. We had some difficulties. Obviously, you can see that the lights aren't on in the studio right now if you're watching via YouTube. And we're having some technical difficulties with the studio and just had some problems with getting in here with our guest. But our guest that we were going to have this week, we will for sure have on in the future.
She will definitely be on in a future episode.
And that might be one of our top guests. We'll see if she later on in the future can beat out the picks from some other people, especially Alyssa. But so this week it's just going to be me and Bryant giving our little takes. And there are some huge things with our pick'ems this week and with the games that we have.
This is a great slate of games.
Yeah, 100%.
Probably one of our best slate of games we've had.
And there's even a really huge matchup that we couldn't even get into the pick'em segment. So there's some really good games this week. But let's dive right into it with Miami football.
All right, before I rant about Miami football here in segment 1, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Now Fitness. Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center based in Grove Hill, Alabama. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit and other workouts, and they help local athletes train and get in their best shape. Call 251-269-3065 for more, and go hit the gym, baby. I probably need to hit the gym a little bit, but
I don't hit the gym, man. I just go for runs every day. But seriously though, talking about runs, what was Miami doing, Bryant?
Okay, so I'm sure all of y'all have seen, especially if you're a college football fan, you've seen what Miami did on Saturday night. They're probably one of the more questionable things I've ever seen in the sport. Normally, when you're up, it don't matter by how many points. When you're about to win a game, and it's under a minute, and the other team has no timeouts or only has maybe one timeout, usually that's when you get into victory formation. Miami did not do that. That with 30-something seconds to go.
I think it was 46 seconds or something like that.
30 to 40 seconds left to go, under a minute, they decided to run the ball, and the most disastrous thing that could happen in that scenario happened. They fumbled the ball. Georgia Tech got it back and then won the football game. Shout out to former Alabama receiver Christian Leary who caught that pass.
But the biggest eyebrow raiser to me is the fact that, yes, we talked about it. It was a 3rd and 10 with however many seconds left. Yeah. All you have to do is knee the ball. Kneel the ball, and let that clock run out. You can let it run down to basically under 10 seconds.
If you kneel it, the game is over. You walk on the field.
Essentially, yes, but then you still have the 4th down. And, so either way, Miami could have easily walked away with this one. They run the ball up the gut on that 3rd and 10, and it almost looked like Miami's running back fell down in slow motion. Watching the play was so slow of him falling down. Fumbles the ball, obviously. Georgia Tech drives down the field, scores a touchdown. But the biggest question to me about this situation is that the AP poll still decided to keep Miami in the top 25. Yes, I know they're 4-1 or 5-1. They have one loss, and that one loss is coming to Georgia Tech. But the way that they played with Mario Cristobal deciding to run the ball there, and then the way that their defense let Georgia Tech march down the field like that with no timeouts in the final minute of the game and win the game, that's just Miami does not deserve to be in the top 25.
My biggest thing is, how do your players put any trust in you the rest of the season? You had players on the sideline saying, "What?" And you can make out the words if you're a good lip reader. What are we doing? And then you had players bawling on the sidelines because of it, because you as a coach failed them. It had nothing to do with the players. Shout out to Jake for mentioning this. Jake Crane, we've had him on the show before, but he made a good point on his show the other day. Not rarely does it ever come down to one play in a game, but this is one of those moments where it does. You had the game on ice. You had the game won. You would have moved on to 5-0 or 6-0, whatever it would have been, and you'd get ready to face UNC in an undefeated matchup for probably your side of the conference, or probably for a driver's seat of the ACC title game. You don't do that. How does your players and the rest of your coaching staff have any trust in you?
There's absolutely no trust. And I mean, moving forward, especially this weekend, Miami heads to Chapel Hill playing North Carolina on the road, and North Carolina's undefeated in the ACC.
And that can be such a morale killer, like a locker room killer. And even the athletic director for Miami, I mean, how do you instill trust in that coach? And this is not even the first time it's happened to Mario Cristobal. It happened to him when he was at Oregon too, against Stanford. He was up 31 to 38 or 38-31. Same scenario where he had the game on ice. All he had to do was kneel it. They run it. They fumble the ball. I think they still won the game, but it's still one of those scenarios where you kneel, you take the knee. It doesn't matter if you're up by 1 point, if you're up by 3 points, or you're up by 50.
It does not matter.
Take the knee.
Yeah, I don't know what the point in that was at all. But I mean,
for the Miami players, I feel for y'all, man. If y'all ever want to come on the back of the End Zone podcast and vent it out, you can.
Come on. Yeah, seriously, come on. But I think that's gonna close it out for what we have to say about that game in general. But that also leads us into another big game that was this weekend, the Red River Shootout.
Dude, what a game.
It was a shootout, man. You got Oklahoma coming out on top, 34-30. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel had a game passing for 285 yards, a touchdown, then also rushing for over 100. Quinn Ewers had one of his best games that we've seen other than the 2 picks, which were crucial that he had. But it's man, literally, and I mean, for Oklahoma fans, they wanted that after last year getting blown out in a game that's a rivalry. And that's what you love about rivalry games like this. And it's the last year that both these teams are having that rivalry game in the Big 12.
It'll be in the SEC. And not only and I'm looking forward to having that rivalry in the SEC. A bunch of really good rivalries will be in the conference, and I'm just before we get into it, I'm just saying the SEC will be the best rivalry conference, especially when you get A&M and Texas back.
Yeah, potentially.
But anyway, I think Oklahoma wanted this game more than Texas, and I don't get it with Texas. They come out looking like the Kansas City Chiefs against Bama. Quinn Ewers is having a career day. He hits four touchdowns for over 20 yards. But this week, it's a different story. He seemed rattled. He seemed – it was like –
He really just didn't seem as composed as he should have been going into the game. I think I think this game really mentally got in his head.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you saw that with the 2 turnovers that he forced. And it's and I mean, it showed.
Yeah.
It showed.
And not only that, even Oklahoma didn't even play their best game. Oklahoma had some moments, too, where – they had the block punt in the end zone that Texas recovered for a touchdown. They had some other mishaps on offense and a couple mishaps on defense. But Oklahoma just They seemed like they wanted it more. I was really impressed with Oklahoma's defense. They were getting to Quinn Ewers. They're not only in his head, but also they were getting pressure on him. Secondary was easily locking down some of Texas's weapons. Texas had some success in the run game.
And you think about it though, this is a game that if it weren't for the turnovers, Texas probably would have won this game. You look at it. It was a game of combined over 1,000 total yards. Obviously, Texas was on top. Texas had 527 total yards. Oklahoma had 486. And Texas also controlled the ball way more. They had the ball. They had possession for over 32 minutes, where Oklahoma had the ball for less than 28. And it just came down to the 2 interceptions and the 1 fumble. And it's like, man.
But Texas is not out of this yet. They are still very much in the conversation. In the playoff conversation, just because you have one loss, these two teams will see each other again in Dallas in Jerry's world in the Big 12 title game.
Easily, without a doubt.
The two best teams in the Big 12 this year. They easily probably will run the table. Now, my biggest question is, how does Texas handle this loss? Because you've seen it before when Texas does suffer a big loss, a loss in a big game like this, they start to kind of fall apart and maybe lose a game down the road that they shouldn't, and it hurts their chances.
Yeah.
How does Texas respond after this loss? I think they'll be all right.
I think they will too. But speaking of it, kind of jumping out of this game, you talked about how these are two of the best teams in the Big 12, which I 100% agree with you. They are. Texas and Oklahoma are probably going to meet in the Big 12 championship. But looking at the bottom of the Big 12, man, you got 4 new teams that came into the Big 12 this year between BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. And 3 of those teams are the 3 worst teams in the Big 12. You've got Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF are all 0-2 in conference play. BYU is 1-1. And I mean,
UCF is 0-3.
Yeah, in conference play. Yeah, and it's like, what is going on? Everybody, and yes, I understand it's all of these teams' first year in the Power 5. Yes, they were in the American Athletic Conference. Not all of them, but Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF were all in the American Athletic Conference, came over to the Big 12. But it's like a lot of people were kind of expecting more out of this. And with Cincinnati, I get it. Cincinnati lost Luke Fickell. They go into it and that's huge too for them. But it's like, it's kind of shocking to see.
I think the one I'm most surprised about is UCF, because they have a veteran coach like Gus Malzahn. They had veteran players like John Rice Plumlee. I thought maybe they would have been the one to fare better, and I think we discussed that earlier, before the season started, which one of these teams would come out doing the best. But BYU's kind of the one that's kind of jumped out among those 4. They did beat Arkansas on the road.
They are 4-1.
They're 4-1. They do have a conference win, but they also have a conference loss to Kansas. But I think these 4 teams will be all right. I think it takes time, because not only are you not used to the environments that you're playing in on a weekly basis, of 70,000, 80,000 students, fans. You're not used to that environment every week. It'll get there with recruiting.
I think they need to get acclimated to it. And obviously now that they are in the Big 12, like you just said, recruiting is a huge factor for their schools now, because now they can recruit even more. They're getting more funding to go towards.
Their biggest issue, though, with Texas and Oklahoma exiting, you have 4 more new teams coming in next year. And among those are Colorado and Utah. And you got Arizona State and Arizona,
it doesn't make it any easier.
Doesn't make it any easier.
And I think the big question for me with this is once this happened, a lot of people said, "Oh, all of these Group of 5 schools that are like powerhouses in the Group of 5 are gonna get a chance now to jump up into the Power 5." But now, I know it's the first year; it's kind of an experiment. But with this happening, I don't know if it's going to be happening with many other Group of 5 schools being able to get that jump.
Yeah, and you're this kind of starting to prove why it's so difficult for the Group of 5 to get into the playoffs. Because if you play you're seeing it now with these 4 teams, besides BYU.
BYU's one conference win came to Cincinnati, the other new team in the conference.
But they still got other wins against like I said, Arkansas on the road. But you're seeing it now when you're going through these all Power 5 schedules for the most part, that it can be tough. It can be a gauntlet, especially what your conference is like. If if say who's the best team in the Sun Belt right now, JMU were to go up to the SEC, they would probably go 0 they'd probably be Vanderbilt level in the SEC because unless they played Vanderbilt, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think JMU would be a little better. It does depend, and that's the thing. The Group of 5 competition is a big step below, and I mean, I'm not trying to crap on Group of 5 schools because I was one of the guys that was always like,
we go to a Group of 5 school.
And I'm like, I was one of those guys preaching on it before the season started. Like, let's get more Group of 5 schools into the Power 5. But right now, it's looking like it's less and less likely that is going to happen.
Well, see, the big thing that, and I think we could potentially see this idea brought up. And once again, I'm gonna reference Jake's show, Cranny Company. They've referenced this, a relegation system, kind of like in soccer, where your best Group of 5 team plays the worst Power 5 team. And then, or like say they group it by conference to where it's like the SEC is paired with the Sun Belt. The best team in the Sun Belt could play against the worst team in the SEC, and then if the Group of 5 team wins, they could move up into the SEC, and then say if it's Vanderbilt,
they drop down
to the Group of 5. And you'd have to play your way back out. It'd be like a relegation system.
That could happen, but I mean, then again,
it's a stretch. But that has been an idea thrown out there.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? But I think the Group of 5 is good because I mean, especially with the conference realignments too. You were thinking maybe there's a chance for more Group of 5 schools to get out, or like with the Pac-2 now between Oregon State and Wazoo, there was questions about maybe
some of those
Mountain West teams, like maybe getting in there, or those two teams going to the Mountain West.
Yeah.
But I mean, at this point, who knows what's going to happen?
Well, I think right now a lot of these, I mean, all the realignment talk is kind of, especially now that we're in the bulk of the season, it's kind of
died down.
And so, and I'm very happy about that because that's all it was in like July and August before the season started. But it will be brought back up again, and once the season is over, because it is. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but there are some things to address.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, that's kind of all I got to say about the Big 12 and all that mumbo jumbo.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. And like speaking of conference realignment, I feel bad. I don't feel bad for Michigan. Their schedule next year is tough, and after their schedule, how easy their schedule is this year. After
how easy their schedule's been the past for 3 years, and I'm not saying that it's easy, but the beginning of the year, it's pretty easy. And I know I can't talk. I know Michigan's whooped Ohio State the last 2 years. It's a new year, which I'm thankful for. But I mean,
a lot of these teams a lot of these Big Ten teams and a lot of these Pac-12 teams that are moving to the Big Ten and Big 12, they get to see what the SEC goes through on a year in and year out basis of the
okay, but you're saying that like Alabama doesn't play Austin PA like week 10 of the season, and
hey, we play Chattanooga this season.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but I mean, James Franklin also recently made a comment, and everyone was asking if it was about Michigan football. Just going back to how you were just talking about Michigan having like a cupcake schedule at the beginning of the year, and a lot of people said that James Franklin's comment was towards Indiana, but what James Franklin said in speaking to the media this past week in a press conference, he said that there was a specific team in the Big Ten that is buying out a ton of game contracts, saying that this specific team is doing whatever they got to do to possibly give themselves a chance to go undefeated. And a lot of people were saying that's a shot at Michigan because Michigan's doing whatever they can to play crappy teams at the beginning of the year to put them at that number 2 spot. Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think James Franklin's kind of just trying to stir the pot a little bit.
I'm sure he is. Because that game's coming up soon. I mean, Penn State plays Ohio State next week, so I mean
2 weeks or
next week.
Yeah,
like, not this weekend, but next week. Next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. Thank God Ohio State has Penn State at home. I'm a little upset that it's a noon game. We'll see what happens out of that. I really don't think that the shoe's going to be rocking as much as it should, as if it was a primetime game. But then again, it is what it is, and that's going to get us right into segment 3. Segment 2, yeah, not segment 3. Sorry, I'm out of it. This Ghost energy drink is getting me too energetic right now. But yeah, segment 2 is coming right up, and we're going to talk about some of these complete teams in college football.
We're going to recap A&M and Bama as well.
So let's. before we dive right into segment 2, not segment 3, we would like to thank 251 Pool Works for sponsoring this segment. 251 Pool Works is family owned and operated. They offer pool cleaning, service, maintenance, and repair to the greater Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola areas. And if you're needing any monthly pool cleaning service and or repair, give them a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. We can't thank 251 Pool Works enough. And I mean, obviously the weather right now is getting pretty, not crappy, but I mean, it's
starting to cool down a little bit.
No, and I mean, we've been saying that, but right now it actually really is starting to cool down.
And it's been raining this week. We finally, that's like a miracle in Mobile right now. We're going through like some kind of drought. It's crazy to finally think we have some rain and some cooler weather. Especially since it rains so much in Mobile. But there's like an eclipse this weekend. But done talking about weather. Another game to recap here. A game that went completely opposite of what I expected. Alabama goes into College Station and somehow comes out with a win, a 26-20 win against A&M. Biggest thing that jumped out to me about this game was Alabama wasn't perfect. They had 14 penalties. A lot of them were false starts because the 12th man did their job. A lot of it had to do with Jalen Milroe. Talk about a quarterback developing in front of us. This guy has been getting better every week since he was benched in the USF game, since the Texas game. If you've watched Bama consistently, and of course I do because I'm a fan, but also not from a fan. If you've watched him, you can slowly start seeing him grow.
Oh, there's been a significant jump, and I mean, even if you're not watching, and you technically have to watch to see that jump, but even if you're just looking at a statistical standpoint, you've seen his, and he's always been a good rushing quarterback.
Yeah.
But you've seen his rushing numbers slowly go down, and those passing numbers just jump up through the roof, and it's what you want to see.
Yeah. And what I saw from him was him staying in the pocket because he really couldn't run. A&M had him bottled up. They had his spies on him. They were constantly throwing pressure at him, and so he wasn't really able to run that much. He had negative 31 rushing yards. And Bama only had 23 rushing yards. They could not run the ball for squat until maybe the end. But which is the most surprising thing to me is that they still won. But you saw him make plays from the pocket, stay in the pocket, be patient. And Alabama's offensive line, while it wasn't perfect, gave him time when it mattered. He was able to, go through his reads, look off defenders, manipulate the field with his eyes, and that was just something you wanted to see. He did get beat on one throw over the middle. He threw it too late and it was intercepted. But other than that, he played a pretty good game. And I want to talk about Alabama's defense. I think Alabama's defense is nasty. They came up big when they needed to. 4 sacks, one was for a safety, a blocked field goal that should have been returned for a touchdown, but was called back because of a stupid blindside block call. But man,
I mean, hey, you had 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss too. And I mean, they were getting it done. They were getting it done where they needed to, especially on the defensive line too. Yes. And I mean, just your secondary too, and you're seeing. Because, I mean, especially in a year where, I'm sorry, Bryant, it's not Bama's year, and I know you hate to hear that. There might be a way, a 10% chance you could sneak your way into the playoffs.
It's yet to be seen.
But as of right now, I mean, you're seeing the growth that you want to see from this team, though. And especially in spots where you didn't think, it just didn't look that promising at the beginning of the year.
And then at receiver, too, Jermaine Burton, 9 catches for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. He ate his spinach or he ate his Wheaties that morning or something. He went off on a completely different level that we expected to see from Jermaine Burton from the start of last year when he transferred from Georgia. But now he's starting to step it up. The Senior Bowl recognized him this week and whatnot.
Yeah, he's looking like Marvin Harrison Jr. out there.
Oh yeah, and Tommy Rees, people have been giving Tommy Rees, a lot of flack lately. I think he's finally starting to realize Milroe's strength and play to his strengths. One thing I would like to start to see more is more design quarterback runs, because when you have a guy that athletic, you could use that to your advantage. Options, reverses, misdirection, especially when you're not running the ball between the tackles that well. So that's what I like to see on the A&M side of things. Not what you wanted to see. Bama let A&M hang around this game, especially in the second half. And then in the first half, A&M let Bama stay in the game. And there were some moments in there where you felt like A&M had a chance to come back and maybe possibly win the game.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like the play calling was a little off. I felt like there were some moments where Jimbo was scared. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's one of those things where Bama didn't play their best and could have easily lost the game, but they still came out and won. And that's something like that's something that can be improved on. You're slowly starting to see this Bama team getting better. I don't know, man. It's happy. I'm happy to see it. We got bacon bits this weekend, Arkansas, and I'll be eating bacon on Saturday morning and some pork, to get ready for that matchup. But anyway, I enjoyed this game. I'm ready to see Alabama's defense eat some more. That's what I'm happy about.
And we'll see what they're able to do. But speaking of just defense, looking at teams from a whole perspective, with just the most complete teams in college football right now. And not Bama, but sorry, Bryant. And I'm not even going to say Ohio State's a complete team quite yet either. I know Ohio State's ranked third right now. Obviously, yes, I love my Buckeyes. But thinking of and I'm going to put out a team out there right now that not a lot of people would look at as right now. I'm talking about most complete team, offensively, defensively, laying the hammer down against
South
teams.
Alabama. No, I'm joking.
And my pick right now I'm not going to say they're the most complete team, but a team that's being left out of the conversation right now is the Oregon Ducks. I don't know if you're expecting me to say that, but right now, Oregon has the number 2, like the second best total team defense, or total team offense, right behind Washington. Obviously, Washington's first. Oregon and Washington play this week. We'll get into that in our college football pick'em segment. But Oregon has the number 2 team offense in all of college football. They also have a top 10 defense in all of college football. And they have a top 5 passing defense. I just think this team right now, obviously, they destroyed Colorado. They've been destroying a bunch of teams. I think Oregon is one of those more complete teams that's kind of getting left out of the playoff conversation as of right now. And I know that everyone knows that they have a chance, and they're obviously up there in the Pac-12. But I think that's a team that is one of the more complete teams.
Kind of the reason why they've kind of been left out is because they haven't exactly been tested up until this point. Their best game was against Colorado, and Colorado, while they have had some success, they weren't as good as everybody thought they were after the TCU game. But I'm not here to bash on Colorado. We're here to talk about Oregon, but I think that's kind of why they're kind of being left out. Now they will be tested this weekend. This will be their biggest test, and I can get into more of that in our pick'em. But I could argue and say right now, I don't really see a team that is complete right now.
Yeah.
You can sit here and tell me Michigan all you want to. I don't care. Michigan has not played anybody worth a crap right now.
They haven't had a true test.
They haven't had a true test.
And as much as I you know how much I love Ohio State.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Ohio State is not a true team. They've shown their struggles.
Yeah.
Yes, they're good. I think they have way better defense than they've had in recent years. But offensively, there's still those struggles. I think McCord's gotten better each week, but there's still that's the big what if for Ohio State is McCord really hasn't shown.
If I had to pick one, I'd probably still say it's Georgia until it's not.
I would agree, but the only reason why I'm saying, I do agree, but the thing for me is I think they're going to lose here within the next couple of weeks. I
don't know, man. Carson Beck, Georgia showed me something on Saturday against Kentucky. Carson Beck, I think, took a huge step. He played his best game. Probably of his career. He looked like this. The way the Georgia played on Saturday, is the Georgia team we thought we'd see from the get-go. I think they're finally kind of like Bama, kind of like Ohio State. They're kind of starting to hit their stride at the right moment. Now Georgia is undefeated. They've won. They've won. I don't know how many games in a row. They haven't lost since the 2021 SEC championship game. So right now, I'm still going to stick with Georgia until it's not. Like I said, right now it's hard to go against Georgia because even at this point last year, Georgia was being doubted because they had some close calls. I can't do that this year, man. It's Georgia until it's not, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I'd say another team too that just because the Big Ten fan of me, I'd say Penn State's up there too with being a complete team. I think they're better than they have been. Every year Penn State's always up there. They're always up there can they beat Michigan and Ohio State? And we talked about this earlier on in the season if Drew Aller is that guy, and I think that he's shown that. Mm-hmm. And yes, Penn State really hasn't been tested that big yet. They did blow out Iowa 31-0.
But they've won the games that they're supposed to.
And they've won by a lot.
And that's been the biggest thing with Penn State is they always drop a game before they even play Ohio State, before they even play Michigan, even sometimes before they play Iowa or something like that. They always drop a game that they shouldn't. But this year they're winning the games that they're supposed to, and like you said, by a lot.
Yeah, by a lot. And like James Franklin is really looking like he is very confident and comfortable with this team. And I'm nervous about that as an Ohio State fan in 2 weeks coming up, the week after this upcoming weekend with Ohio State playing Penn State. But I think that's going to do it for our segment 2.
Oh, we got one more thing to talk about.
What's that?
We got a playoff scenario to talk about, or end of season scenario. So, like I said in the opening or the intro, we're all looking for the playoff. At this point in the season, you'd like to think the playoff race is starting to take, and the conference championship race is starting to take shape, but not in the ACC. We all look for the nightmare scenarios, or like the scenarios you like that would like give the committee hell to think about on the selection day. Well, here's one to think about. North Carolina, Florida State, and Louisville are all undefeated right now. They do not play each other in the regular season. How that would work out as far as a tiebreaker, I don't know. I don't think.
Yeah, especially with playing in the ACC championship, like how the.
But if say both of those, like say Florida State wins the ACC like we think they will, like, but you still have a one loss. Say Florida State beats North Carolina in the ACC championship game. You have an undefeated Florida State. You have a one-loss North Carolina. And then say if Louisville is the team that's left out and they're 12-0.
I don't think Louisville finishes 12-0, though. Looking at the remaining schedule.
I'm just saying it's a scenario.
But hypothetically, they still host Duke, who's a very strong, very good Duke team. Obviously, Notre Dame beat Duke at Duke, and then Louisville just beat Notre Dame. But Louisville hosts Duke. They go to Miami, and Miami's kind of spotty, and then they host Kentucky. Yeah. So, I mean, their schedule doesn't get any easier towards the end of the year.
But it's still doable. Like I said, they don't play. The fact that they don't play, like neither of these teams play each other up until whoever makes it to the ACC title game. That's wild. And if I kind of want to see the scenario play out just because I want to see what happens. I want to see
how they would handle that situation.
How they would decide who goes to the ACC championship game, but also the committee. Like what do you like one team would. Like if they all three finished undefeated, one team would be left out of the conference championship game and stay undefeated.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that team that would be left out of the conference championship game, I really don't see it making the playoff. I don't think the ACC is as competitive. I mean, we did see it last year where Ohio State got lucky enough to get into the playoff after not competing in competing in the conference championship game. Obviously, thank God for Utah beating USC last year. But I mean, I don't know. It's just a situation where it gets sticky and it gets confusing, and you're really not sure what's going to happen. But I think this year, college football is just too powerful for. I think that team that gets left out will not even get in the playoff. But
it's going to be interesting for sure. Like this is like one of those scenarios that the committee is hoping doesn't play out because it'll definitely like give them a lot to think about. But more than likely, it won't happen because we do this every year where there's like a scenario. We do this where there's a scenario every year like this where it happens and it does, or where we think it could happen but it doesn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see, but that's going to do it for segment 2/3, like I said earlier. But now let's get right into our non-guest pick'em segment where we don't have a guest.
We could have like a person in between, like a imaginary friend. No, I'm just joking. Don't
listen to Brian. Don't listen to Brian. But let's get right into our pick'em segment and see what we have to say with this week's picks. Before we dive into our Week 7 Pick'em segment without a guest this week, due to the fact that we do not have a guest, we have an incentive.
We're going to do a little wager.
Yeah, not necessarily a wager, but a way to make it more fun and entertaining, I guess, since there's not a guest to pick this segment at all. Instead of the fact, obviously, Bryant's a huge Alabama fan, and I'm a huge Ohio State fan. Whoever gets the more amount of picks, whoever gets more games correct for our Pick'em segment, the next episode, that whatever person, Bryant, if say I win, then Bryant has to wear an Ohio State hat all of next episode. And if Bryant wins, then I have to wear a Bama hat all of next episode. So obviously I'm going to win because I'm not going to be putting on a Bama hat. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, we're opening up this week's Pick'em segment with a game between two teams that both kind of didn't meet expectations last week, both of them coming off losses. We got Mizzou, unranked Mizzou, going to Kentucky, playing number 24 Kentucky. Obviously, Mizzou's 5-1 now. They lost last week to LSU by 10.
Both of these teams coming off losses.
Yeah, both these teams. And, I mean, Mizzou has Brady Cook passing for close to 2,000 yards.
Luther Burden's a dog,
Luther Burden, 793 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns, like almost leading college football receivers. But then you look at Kentucky, they have Ray Davis.
Yeah.
And we really hyped up Ray Davis last week, especially Taylor Tanner, thinking that Ray Davis was going to.
And Georgia shut him down.
Yeah, they really did. But they also have Devin Leary, who's pretty good. I mean, for me, I don't really have much to go too in-depth in this matchup. I think it's an okay matchup. But I think Kentucky's home. Mizzou's coming off of a huge loss to LSU. And I think Kentucky's coming off an even bigger loss to Georgia. I think that Ray Davis, Devin Leary just really performed this game, and I think Kentucky comes out on top.
I think the Kentucky kind of got, like, not only did they get beat, like, down, and they probably got morally beat because, I mean, it's Georgia, man. But you wanted to see Kentucky out there and compete against Georgia. you wish it could have been a closer game. It was like 51-13 final score. I'm going with Mizzou because I think Mizzou had the better loss against LSU. That game was close the entire time. Now, Mizzou did blow it, but Jaden Daniels went God mode for the fourth quarter and played hurt and whatever. I mean, Jaden Daniels just somehow willed his team to that win. I like Brady Cook. I like Luther Burden. I like the running back. I like Mizzou. So I'm going.
Whatever you say, but right now you just technically compared LSU to Georgia. Between both these teams' last 2 losses, and Georgia's clearly the better team than LSU.
I think Mizzou had the better loss to build off of.
I can respect that.
So and Mizzou still got a shot at the SEC East, while Kentucky's probably over. I mean they would need Georgia to lose twice. All Mizzou would have to do, which is a very tall task, is beat Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll see. But, I mean,
I'm going with Mizzou.
All right, whatever you say. Let's go right into the next matchup. We got number 25 Miami, who we completely shat on earlier, headed to number 12 UNC in Chapel Hill. Obviously, Miami lost last week to Georgia Tech in what we completely crapped on at the very beginning of the episode. Very questionable decisions there. And, I mean, just off of that, I'm picking UNC. UNC is the better clear-cut team here. And, I mean, Miami has solid play from Tyler Van Dyke, but I don't think Tyler Van Dyke is going to be able to outplay Drake May, outplay Marion Hampton. They're running I really think that UNC is just the better team here.
I got UNC big, man. They've turned it on another level, and now they got Walker back from the NCAA
after appealing his
whole debacle back. They
eligibility.
They get him back. I think he'll be motivated. They'll be motivated because of that. It's in Chapel Hill. I mean, there's not much more to say. I mean, I think like I was saying in segment 1, the not kneeling the football and losing the game that way could be a real locker room killer. It can be a morale killer. So I don't know where Miami's head is at this week. So I got UNC big. The Tar Heels, man, they're gonna roll.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, this leads us into our next game. It's the only matchup for this week's Pick'em segment where neither teams are ranked. We have the Iowa Hawkeyes headed to Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin, taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. Obviously, there was a lot of high expectations for Wisconsin headed into this year. I hyped them up. I mean, we both hyped them up, but it was mainly me being the Big Ten fan, especially with Luke Fickell there. Yeah. Obviously, they lost to Washington State week 2, which was a shocker, but Washington State has turned out to be pretty good. Exactly, especially with Cam Ward. And, I mean, you look, Wisconsin's 4-1. One loss was Wazoo by 9. And the one time when they played Washington State, that was one of Cam Ward's worst passing games. Wisconsin's defense shut down Cameron Ward. And obviously, both of these teams between Wisconsin and Iowa, they both have pretty crappy passing games. Obviously, Wisconsin has Tanner Mordecai. Iowa did have Cade McNamara. Now they have Deacon Hill stepping up, who's honestly playing better than Cade McNamara even ever was. But this is going to be a game that's battling out rushing-wise. I think both these teams are going to have, you look at Wisconsin, they have Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi, arguably one of the better Big Ten running back duos. I don't know if they top Michigan or Ohio State, but they're definitely up there. And you look at Iowa, they got blown out week 3 by Penn State, 31-0. I don't think it's going to be the same, but I think it's the fact that Iowa is nowhere near where they have been in the past. And Iowa's always known for having a top defense. Yeah. And you look at every single week they're letting these teams that should not be hanging in there with them hang in there. And their defense is nowhere near what it used to be. Yeah. And I think Wisconsin wins this one big at home.
Yeah, I think I got Wisconsin too. I mean, this one's kind of a back and forth for me because I feel like this is one of those low-scoring games. Like, I feel like Iowa's defense could keep them in it. And then Wisconsin has a great defense as well. We know Iowa can't score. So, I mean, I feel like in the end, Wisconsin does have the better offense, but I do think it's a low-scoring game. I think this is like a 13-7 type game where it's just low-scoring.
Dude, it could be a 7-0 game.
Shoot.
Like, who knows?
It's a crappy game all around. Probably going to be a little bit rainy. Because I know USC and Notre Dame, that game we'll get into later, will be a raining game. So, I mean, we'll see. But I like Wisconsin as well.
Yeah, and, I mean, obviously Wisconsin for sure. Big Ten matchup, happy about that. But going back in the SEC, we have unranked Texas A&M headed to Neyland Stadium, taking on the number 19 Tennessee Volunteers. Obviously, A&M's coming off that brutal loss to Bama at home in College Station. And Tennessee's 4-1 coming off of their bye week, but before their bye week, they had that Super Bowl win over South Carolina, according to Spencer Rattler. And for me, one of the big things about this game is that, yes, A&M's a solid team, but the thing for me is that A&M has had 4 straight home games, and they've only had 1 away game, and that 1 away game that they had was the loss at Miami. And I think that the fact that they're headed to Neyland, I think this Tennessee team's way more complete. I think Joe Milton's going to go out there and ball out. Like, there's a potential that he could get shut down. A&M has a pretty solid defense, but I think Tennessee wins this one by a ton.
Speaking of, road games, A&M has lost their last 7 true road games. True road games, they have lost their last 7, while Tennessee hasn't lost at home since 2021. Do with that information what you will. And I think the Alabama loss hurts. With the kind of experience I have of watching the Alabama A&M game, when A&M either wins or loses that game, and especially when they lose it, they kind of start to kind of fall apart afterwards. They start to kind of lose games maybe they shouldn't lose. They kind of fall out of the mix for the SEC West. Even when they beat Bama a couple years ago, they still find a way to screw it up and allow Bama to get back in the race and then win the SEC West. I like Tennessee here as well. I like the Vols. A&M maybe could catch Tennessee looking ahead to Bama next week, but I don't think that's the case. I think Tennessee – only thing about Tennessee I will say, though, is their passing game is not as – after losing Brew McCoy, I don't know how effective it will be. But and this might be a hot take. It might not be. But I think the Jimbo experience might be slowly coming to an end at A&M after this season.
I don't think that's a hot take.
I think the writing is on the wall, especially if they start losing games like this. So I like Tennessee.
Okay, and I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Tennessee takes the game too, obviously. But next game, another SEC matchup. We got unranked Auburn headed to number 22 LSU. Obviously, LSU's 4-2. I would say they squeaked by Missouri last week because Jaden Daniels had a game. I mean, obviously, he's passed for really close to he's almost at 2,000 yards, and he's also rushed for over 400 yards in the season. Great dual threat quarterback, really hard to stop, really hard to take down. And obviously, looking at everybody else on their team between Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And then you look at Auburn, they're 3-2. 0-2 to start out SEC play, which is not where they want to be. They've lost to A&M and Georgia, who are 2 somewhat better teams. But, man, I really don't think that Auburn has what it takes to get it done. Peyton Thorne is not a complete quarterback. You really haven't seen a complete game out of him at all. And I mean, rushing-wise, who do they have? They have Jarquez Hunter and Peyton Thorne, who's leading their rushing game. I think that LSU wins this game in Baton Rouge by 50+.
All right, so not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. 6 of the last matchups between Auburn and LSU have been decided by 5 points or less. Even in 2019, when LSU had the national championship year, Auburn was the only one to beat or to lose to LSU by less than a touchdown. It was a 23-20 win over Auburn. The only game that in the last 7 that hasn't been decided by 5 points or less was in the 2020 COVID year when Auburn somehow beat the crap out of LSU. Like it was like 40-11. LSU was coming off that. I don't know. It was a crazy year that year. I think Auburn is the best defense that LSU will have faced to this point. They have a great.
You think better than Florida State?
Maybe other than Florida State, I'm not sure. Okay, besides Florida State, up until this point, LSU is the best defense that Auburn's the best defense that LSU will have faced to this point, other than FSU. I think Auburn can get it done on defense. I think if they can somehow corral Jaden Daniels, if they can bottle him up, not let him scramble, and they have the defensive personnel to do that. They have the secondary to kind of keep up with Malik Neighbors, keep up with some of their receivers and their tight ends. If Auburn can just get some momentum in the passing game, it's kind of like A&M and Bama last week, where if Bama could get something in the passing game, Milroe could have a career day, or just play. It's kind of like last week. If Auburn can get anything going in the passing game, if they can throw for like 200 yards at least, they can win this game, and I think they can. I think Peyton Thorne has his best game. I think they go on the road and beat LSU. I'm going Auburn. Not to mention it helps Bama out a little bit too.
All right, whatever you say. But next game, we got a ranked matchup between both teams. Obviously, number 10 USC heads to South Bend, Indiana, taking on number 21 Notre Dame. Notre Dame's coming off that big loss at Louisville. Obviously, not what Notre Dame fans wanted to see. For me personally, you got to think about the fact that, I know there's a lot of teams that still haven't had a bye week yet.
Yeah. Notre
Dame also started in week 0, and Notre Dame's going into their 8th straight game this week. They're also going into their 4th straight primetime matchup. It started when they hosted Ohio State at home at like 7:30. Then they went to Duke. Then they went to Louisville. Now they're back at home. And I think now that it's their first game back at home, another primetime matchup, I think Notre Dame fans are going to show out. Obviously, Audric Estime is one of the better running backs in college football. Sam Hartman has kind of been underperforming throughout these big primetime matchups. And then obviously USC, they're 6-0. I think this is their first true test. I think Colorado really gave them a run for their money 2 weeks ago. Obviously, Caleb Williams, he's phenomenal. You also got to look at Taj Washington and Brendan Rice, all these other receivers that are super, super, super good. But their defense is their weakest link. Their defense has been unable to stop, I think, the deep ball, and even I think they're unable to stop good rushers. And I think Audric Estime is going to have a career day running all over this USC defense. Yeah. And I think Notre Dame takes this one at home. I think it's a close game, but I think Notre Dame takes it by a score or 2.
So, okay, so this one's a toss-up for me. We get a really good quarterback battle between Sam Hartman and Caleb Williams. Notre Dame is definitely the most physical team and best defense that USC will have gone up against to this point. Probably their truest test. I don't think USC is a top 10 team. I think they should have been left out of top 10. But do with that what you will, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. But to me, this comes down to the quarterbacks. Comes down to the quarterbacks. And while I've been singing Sam Hartman's praises all season, I like how he's been playing. The last few weeks he's gone into a little bit of a slump. He didn't play all that great against Ohio State. He did not play well against Louisville, and he squeaked by Duke. And Caleb Williams is the better quarterback. I have USC escaping Notre Dame with a win, but I still think they're frauds. I still think they're frauds. I do think. If you look at USC's schedule, it picks up over the next.
Yeah, it does.
They have Utah next week, and they have Washington and Oregon still. They have UCLA. Their easiest game the next few weeks is Cal.
Yeah.
But I like USC here to squeak out with a win.
All right. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Looking at two Pac-12 teams that are not frauds that could end up seeing each other in the Pac-12 championship. Yeah. I think this is the game of the week. We have number 8 Oregon headed to number 7 Washington. I think both of these teams, this is both of these teams' truest tests. Both of them are having their best game here. Obviously, like I stated earlier in the episode, in total offense in all of FBS this year, Washington is number 1, Oregon is number 2. But I think this is going to be the biggest test for Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix is the best quarterback in college football right now. I think obviously you can make the argument that Caleb Williams is up there too, but I think there's not a quarterback better than Michael Penix as of right now. But Oregon has a top 5 passing defense in all of college football right now. Obviously, Oregon's 5-0 coming off the bye week. They've completely dominated the past couple of weeks. They did have one really close game against Texas Tech in week 2 where they barely squeaked by, but I think that was their defining moment. And since then, they have stepped up when they needed to, and they have really shown that they're up there. And I think Washington just has yet to play a defense as good as Oregon's. I think Oregon is the more complete team here. I still think that it comes down to a nail-biter, might even go into overtime or double overtime. But I just think that Michael Penix is going to struggle to get it done in this game, and I think Oregon comes out on top.
All right, so
Also, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but last year Washington won at Oregon 37-34. This year, I think Oregon wins at Washington. Same kind of scenario.
Maybe. So Oregon has lost their last 5 road/neutral site games against ranked opponents. Now, I've never been a big fan of Bo Nix, but I'm starting to kind of come around. I like how Bo Nix has kind of matured since his transition from Auburn to Oregon. Of course, that first game against Georgia, it is what it is. You know, that was last year, but he never wavered after that game. He still continued to play at an elite level. He's still, Dan Lanning has really done a good job developing him in the Pac-12. I do think he can be an NFL quarterback. I don't know, and I still don't know about a first rounder, but he's been playing like it. I think he'll be here at the Senior Bowl when that happens. Hopefully, we can get a chance to talk to him then.
Hopefully,
I'd love to have Bo Nix on the show. But I've become a little bit of a Bo Nix fan. Like I said, I like the way he plays. While this quarterback duel between Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. will be elite, and it doesn't get better than this when it comes to a quarterback duel. Like you said, I do think Oregon is the most complete team. I think they will get the stops on defense they need in order to win this game. I think it might be a shootout. It could be. But Oregon has proven that their defense can get stops. And so I'm going with the Ducks. Quack, quack. Go Ducks.
I mean, hey, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not going against you at all on that. We had quite a few disagreements on some of our other picks, but yeah definitely see Oregon
and
coming out on top.
College game day will be at that game, man. It's going to be electric. For the Pac-12, going away.
That's the game to see, watch, especially like I said,
weekend.
after last year too, 37-34, Washington won at Oregon. I mean, we'll see if Oregon can go into Washington and pull off that technically upset because it's the number. Oregon's ranked 8th, Washington's ranked 7th. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Definitely excited for this week's slates of games. And thank you for tuning in. We're sorry that we did not have a guest this week. Stay tuned next week. In 2 weeks, we'll have the guest that we were looking to have on this week. But thank you for sticking it out.
Next week, we'll have a guest.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know who it is yet, and we're not going to reveal it to you.
Next week, you'll see who's wearing the Ohio State hat or the Bama hat between us two. And it's not going to be me wearing a Bama hat, I can tell you that much.
Oh, we'll see. But remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Leave any feedback for us that we can still improve on. We're still new to this. Even though we're 28 episodes in, we're still new to this.
Oh, and we're still growing too. And
we're still looking to grow. Give us any feedback. Go follow our socials. They're in the links. Just help us grow, man. We're trying to grow. Give us any ideas that will help.
Thank you for tuning in. Episode 28, Back in the End Zone, out of here.